Bills 26, Broncos 16, New Era Field. Vic Carucci with Jerry Sullivan and Jay Skurski. Bit of a surprise here. This was thought to be a day when this Bronco team 2-0, coming off a big beatdown of the Dallas Cowboys, would walk in here and walk out with a victory. It didn't happen, and it didn't happen largely because, number one, the Bills found their passing game. Wasn't dramatic, but much better than it had been, and the only place it could go was up. And two, the defense stood tall, clearly, to a Bronco attack that was tearing after that secondary with their passing game, especially rookie Tre'Davious White.
Yeah, and if someone told you McCoy would go 14 for 21, would you have thought they'd win this game? This defense is going to start to make a believer out of me, guys, because once again, they were very tough. They got a good pass rush, and there were 3 possessions inside their 20 where they stiffened and held them to field goals, and then they finally get some turnovers. So if they can do this against the better quarterbacks, this could be a team, that plays 500 ball.
Yeah, and obviously the defense was a story as well as the improved passing game, but another story that had actually nothing to do with what took place once the game began, but beforehand, the demonstration by the players, the Bills deciding Saturday night to collectively protest the comments, incendiary comments from the president that were directed at all players in the NFL, critical of those who decided not to stand and honor the playing of the national anthem. The Bills had some players who were kneeling, other players who were just indifferent. I guess LaShawn McCoy, for instance, decided to stretch during the whole playing of the anthem. But in general, Jay, it seemed like a rallying point. And if nothing else, and obviously the Broncos same way, they had about more than half of their guys kneeling, but there was more of a unified feeling that the Bills felt came of this.
Yeah, the words that they stressed, we heard from several players in the locker room, was love and equality. That's what they wanted to drive home today. And I think anything that happened on any NFL field, really throughout the country today, is taking a back seat to this story, this larger story about these protests and this movement to protest what predominantly the African American players in the NFL view as racial inequality. And obviously, I think that overshadowed much of today's play on the field here, on the field, as I said, really throughout the country. I mean, we heard from several players, Lorenzo Alexander, who sort of spearheaded the meeting last night, and eloquent as you would imagine, yeah. Very, very well spoken on the topic. And this is going to be something, guys, that is clearly, I think, what today is going to be remembered about. For as much as the Bills did on the field and moving to 2-1, that's all great. But to see them come out onto the field and to see at least a dozen of them take a knee, all of them were, interlocked with their arms. I mean, it was a pretty powerful thing, a pretty weird game to cover in the sense that you really felt like what was happening on the field was secondary, and I think that's what we're going to remember about this game. Yeah, a lot of emotions for sure, and players talked about it carrying over from the days and especially yesterday leading up to today's game. But the Bills are 2-1, and now they take on the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta, the first of back-to-back road games. And first place. Tied. Well, they share it. They share it. But still, I think in a better place than maybe a lot expected, especially after the offensive anemia they saw in Carolina last week. All right, so for Jerry Sullivan and for Jay Skurski, for Derek Gee, just want to remind you to first of all come back to BuffaloNews.com and check all that we have there. The BN Blitz, check that out because we got a ton of stuff on that. New Mike flag,
and notice the new Mike flag as well. And yes, and we thank you for watching us.